right is the first avoidance of unnecessary turbulence. Choice, the move that avoids complications. Choice, the first and most important step. Choice in a relationship is two-faceted. On one end, there is a choice of why, and on the other, there is a choice of who. My focus on this draft will be more so channeled to the who versus the why, owing to its power and importance. But I will nonetheless briefly explain the why, and how it differs from the who. The latter, that is the why, focuses on the reasons one decides to be, intends to be, or is in a relationship, centering on the objectives, missions, and goals which have collectively motivated this action, decision, and/or desire. The choice of why can either be an individual decision, which can prove selfish and catastrophic, or could be a clearly defined mutual agreement, whether formally or informally arranged. The choice of who is also not exempt from the subject of agreement. You will thus find that agreement is an important element in both choice types whenever both parties are involved in a decision. The only difference is the basis of the agreement. While the agreement of the why solely focuses on the activities and/or nature of the relationship, in other words, the actions, the agreement of the who is focused on the nature of the persons in the relationship, in other words, the actors. The latter is stronger, as it can birth many intentional circumstances or outcomes with time, mostly or generally positive, especially when the actors are perfectly or purposefully aligned in one mind. While the former, that is the why, in essence is fixed and sealed, as the agreement, hence expectations, have been clearly defined from the start. Thus, it is ideally unchanging, indifferent, inadaptive, or unevolving. Any contradiction to this standard can be thus deemed a departure from the why and an intrusion to the who, no matter how subtle, thereby tainting its original nature, as it forces an acceptable or consenting change from either or both parties to conform to a new or strange patterns of functioning within a given relationship type over time, which evidently brings in the subject of intentional phase evolution, which is ideally, uniquely a key component of the who and not the why. The choice of the why is largely often superficial and hasty, not well contemplated nor calculated. It is hence often short-termed and vain, as it mostly focuses on either some type of gain by association, immorality, involvement absent meaningful purpose nor intended growth, and/or spontaneous decisions driven by excitement or emotions in the moment, rather than patient observation. Even marriage, although a noble cause, if it uses the hastiness of the why, will oft never end well nor last, especially when excitement and emotions are the main driving factors. Thus, I suppose that it is safe to speculatively or hypothetically suggest at this stage that a probable transition from the who to the why in a present or continued association, although may not be the best or recommended practice, proves positively healthier and/or safer as opposed to transition from the why to the who. For the focus of the who comes from a knowledge and/or experience-based point with a rocky foundation that assesses the primal source and/or motivations of all actions of an individual, which simultaneously applies a wiser approach of caution and careful study. Thus, the why, in its pure crude form, takes no keen nor thoughtful investigative interest in the affairs of the other subject, nor does it inquire into the mind of the other party. On the other hand, the who, in its pure crude form, tends to focus on the inner man or woman, which when carried out well, respecting all its do's and don'ts, triggers character and personality assessment actions, such as guessing at a promising prospect with intent, one who possesses subjective or objective admirable traits, that is forthwith followed by actions or tests aimed at proving the evaluated hypotheses that were previously speculated or perceived from a distance, in order to arrive at a definitive and assuring deduction or resolve that decides whether one should take further interest, hence make moves, or discontinue the pursuit of a person or a cause. The who is durable as it searches the core of a person, from where emanates principles that shapes one's standards, hence actions, beliefs, and convictions, that all accumulate to bring forth circumstances and conditions that the subject being observed attracts and or projects. Hence, the standpoint of the who isn't hasty, and therefore involves taking careful caution at each evolution stage or phase of relationship or association. The who, if done diligently and patiently, is very careful to avoid errors and sees through deceit or pretense with time and trials. Hence, evolutions may occur very slowly. The events, occurrences, and activities surrounding the who are very malleable and mutual. And if the choice or search is achieved in true discipline, patience, uprightness, and diligence, it eventually results to a perfect alignment of two subjects that were formerly who seekers, but have now found literal copies of themselves in terms of virtue, principles, and core beliefs. For the search or choice of the who is always defined and precise on the attributes and virtues sought after prior to defined. Such aligned unions of two who seekers, while maintaining the ultimate envisioned goal of togetherness or matrimony, will thus birth many actions and situations in such a relationship throughout all its evolutions or phases that are easily agreed upon because both parties are like-minded in beliefs and principles. These events within the relationship are willfully, mutually adaptive, and thus at all times aimed towards the positive growth, peace, and progress of the relationship. As earlier inferred, it is important to note that just as the why can or may drift away and intrude into the who, so also can the who drift into the why when focus, discipline, and patience are lost, and when emotions, excitements, or superficial fancies are allowed to take preeminence over logic and or previously set standards while in pursuit or assessment. That is to say, any slight wavering from the initial diligence can yield compromises that will eventually create dire consequences and negative circumstances, contrary to what was aspired and or envisioned from the start, in terms of standard and quality, or even worse. This alone inherently means that if one is aligned with the wrong person, or another whose ways is opposing to one's nature, one can suffer great turbulences, unease, or conflicts, and or the brunt of the circumstances and conditions that comes with a person whose being is contrary to yours. There is also the subject of disgust or hatred, constant reoccurring friction and displeasure that arises as a result of minds being unaligned. While why can vary in purpose, depending on the decision or aspirations of the subjects concerned or involved, the who, on the other hand, is serious and committed, and typically has one purpose, that is, a mutually cherished and virtuous lasting union of loyalty. Yes, it is as you imagined or guessed. This does indeed imply in some way that a dedicated, disciplined, and true who can birth a why. But be mindful, the ideal situation is only one type of why, which is none other than the why of true and honest intentions, backed by conscious actions towards an aspired noble cause or union of true love and fidelity, which equals purpose. Notice that I use the term birth and not drift nor transition. In summary, we can say that the crude why focuses on the aspired end without examining factors that assure durability, nor investigates deeply the other involved party, thus making one ignorant of the other party's stance and convictions. Hence, resulting to affiliations or associations prone to early commotion or catastrophe. While the crude who thoroughly examines an interesting subject with the aim of finding one that is like-minded in positivity. Hence, once that is achieved, it is no marvel that the two who seekers reason alike with similar mannerisms and/or attributes, and they together eventually become serious and keenly focused on birthing one type of why, that is, true lasting love and sincere union with purpose. After all, two cannot work together unless they be agreed. Why the mention of positivity earlier on, you may ask? Simple. It is the best standard and practice, and should be the precursor of one's focus and state of mind before seeking a like mind. If you noticed, at the start, I spoke about complications, and it was not without intent. Although, from all the aforesaid, it may seem as if that finding or focusing on the who is all you need for a perfect and durable relationship. But be warned that finding the who in the wrong, that is, negative or corrupt mind, will fail in itself, and also in the ability to correctly and/or adequately identify, evaluate, or assess indispensable, durable, positive features or personal attributes, which are all times virtuous and righteous. A compromised mind corrupted with errors that deviates one from strong principles tied to righteous goals, no matter how minute, will err in righteous assessment, hence will never attain nor yield true, durable, or peaceful results. Such a mind will fail to find a crude or absolute who. Such a one may have mental righteous aspirations in the search of the ideal who, but will assuredly lack the needed principles for infallible discretion and discernment. Maintaining a righteously principled mind will never err in judgment and shall always sustain a relationship, especially when applied by both aligned parties. It is important that I stress this point, as there be many that try to justify evil, immorality, and such unholy or unfounded intimacies, affiliations, and/or relationships using the alignment aspect of the who to justify current stability. These union types, though seeming to work well for a time, are ignorant of the turbulence, pain, and/or complication that awaits them at the end of that everly dark tunnel that shall show with time and trials. Though sometimes this may seem a strong argument to the corrupted and ignorant, especially those who are currently in such unions yet to experience its collapse. The who, in its true crude form, functions solely by the liveliness of truth, love, righteousness, and wisdom.